Guys, this month gave me the worst book hangover. I need some hair of the dog. Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I am giving you my May reading wrap up. Yeah, okay, so it was a great month, read a lot of great stuff, but it ended on the worst book hangover I have had in quite a while. And I just finished it last night, so I'm still very much suffering. So stick around for that book for sure. Okay, the first book I read in May was Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. Yeah, this was a very buzzy book, a lot of like mixed reviews about it, so I was really excited to see like where I fell and what I thought about it. Okay, so the story is about Scarlett, Lucas, and Penelope. Penelope and Scarlett are divers on the Stanford team, Stanford University, and Lucas is on the swimming team. Yeah, so Lucas and Penn have been together for like a long time, and they end up breaking up. And I guess part of it is because they just like don't match sexually. He's into like kink stuff and she's not. And Penn and Scarlett kind of are becoming more friendly over the whole book, but Scarlett kind of confides in Penn that she's into that kind of stuff. And she's like, you guys should get together and have sex. It's a great idea because we're broken up now, so who cares? Yeah, and so they do. And yeah, so it's like an arrangement, but obviously feelings develop and there is like STEM thing because obviously they are in college. Yeah, and they're kind of like exploring these like sexual preferences that they have together. Guys, I didn't like this book. I didn't like it. I love the cover. I love like the sprayed edges. Like all the other editions of it are beautiful, but I did not like this book. This is my least favorite Ali Hazelwood book I've ever read. There was too much going on between like the STEM stuff and like their school stuff with the diving stuff, with like the trauma stuff, and then the relationship stuff with like her friend kind of setting her friend up with her ex. Like I just didn't like that dynamic at all. And then other things that like kind of happen with those three later, like near the end of the book, which seems strange. I just didn't like it. Okay. The kink, whatever, it was pretty mild, but I don't even care. Like that didn't even matter to me. Like the spiciness of this book did not play into that I didn't like it. I just thought the whole dynamics were weird. There was too much going on. I didn't really warm much to any of the characters. So I held out hope that this was going to get a lot better, but honestly, if it wasn't so popular, I would have DNF'd it. So I'm giving Deep End by Ali Hazelwood 2 stars. The next book I read in May, you will have seen in my, basically, if you like The Last of Us, you'll like these books video, which I'll link above and below, and that is The Road by Cormac McCarthy. Now, this was a book I had never heard of. I have heard of Cormac McCarthy, even though I have never read any of his books. And I was kind of looking into books that would fit this theme because I had a few other books that would work for this video, but I didn't have enough. And like this was like the one that you needed to read. And I was like, great, I have never read it. It's supposed to be like the most perfect book for a fan of The Last of Us. So I read it. So basically it is a dystopian post-apocalyptic story that is very vague and says a lot with little words. So when I say vague, you don't know people's names, generally speaking. You don't know where they are generally, and you don't know where they're going, really. There's no details. You don't know why the world's ended. It seems like it's environmental from just like some stuff that happens in the book, but you're never told. You don't get a lot of details on things. So this is basically very much a survival story about a dad and his son crossing through the mountains to get to like the coast, thinking that they will have better chances of survival when they get to the coast. They have to scavenge for food a lot. The elements are a big threat. And of course, people, which is like the number one threat in any kind of like dystopian post-apocalyptic world, is the other people. So yeah, it's a harrowing book. It's very sad, which I love, as you know. And you get some backstory, which is interesting. And I will say that it is very bleak, but yeah, they're just traveling and surviving. Even though you don't even know what their ultimate goal is, like if they get to the coast, then what? Like you never really know. But you never really know how old they are. Like the boy, the son, sometimes he says things that are pretty childish. So you're like, okay, maybe he's like 5. And then I'll say something else that seems like maybe he's 9. I don't know, like, or 10. You don't know. He kind of grew up. He like was born after the world ended, or just when it ended. So he's never like had like a traditional childhood. So who knows? It's a pretty short book, which I was surprised by, and I think it won a Pulitzer Prize. So it is very well written. And I will say, as far as trigger warnings go, the one I will say is that I feel like it has 2 specific scenes that have very disturbing depictions of cannibalism. So even when I was telling my husband about the book, I was like, this one scene, he was like, oh, like horrified, like even hearing about it. Yeah, because it's pretty intense. It very much touches on like what people will resort to stay alive and to survive, even if they never would have crossed a line like that in like normal world, like when civilization was still functioning. So yeah, really good book, very bleak, but it might not end like you think it ends. So the next book I read in May is Vampire Metropolis by Robin Brown, and this was my first arc that I've talked about on the channel. So thank you very much to Robin Brown for reaching out to me about his book that came out. And it was right up my alley because it was like a vampire urban fantasy. And basically it's about Caden, and he gets dropped into Vampire City. And it's basically after the internet happened, they couldn't keep all these like mystical and supernatural, they couldn't hide anymore because the internet like outed them. So like vampires, trolls, fairies, like shifters, like all these different things humanity knew about now. So they basically took an unnamed American city, vacated it, and like walled it in. And so like they just corral all these kinds of creatures there and basically just let them have at it. So each kind of district in this vampire city has a vampire kind of overlord, and they rule like the district. So the vampires kind of rule this world with a lot of other creatures living there as well. There was a lot of like really interesting world building, and the thing about the world building in this was that it was very digestible. Like you didn't have to like stop and like really figure out with your head like what's going on here. It was very easy to get into the world and move on with the story. So Caden is dropped into this after being captured by humans, and he has to adjust to Vampire City. He has to learn like the ropes, the ins and outs, how to survive, what not to do, what to do. And something happens where he is now bent on revenge, and he's just not going to toe the line. He's not going to fall in line. And he meets another person named Alma that might be the perfect person to help him get revenge. And that's all I'll really say about it. But there's a really interesting cast of creatures in this book that I really enjoyed. As someone that really enjoys vampire content, there was an interesting twist on lore in this book. So, you know, the sunlight, the garlic, the yada, yada, yada. Like some of that is there and some of that is twisted and some of that is new. So that's always nice to get like a fresh perspective on the vampire lore. For some reason, it gave me like Warm Body vibes, if you remember that book/movie. Kind of like how it humanized zombies and like made them very personable and like human-like. I think this does that for vampires and other creatures, the other creatures that live in Vampire City. So my one like con about this book, I would say, is that the final confrontation took like this last quarter of the book. It was very long final confrontation. So I got like a little bit like, okay, yeah, they fight this person, that person. So, but the ending was very unconventional and it was not what I was expecting, which made me think that there could be another book coming in this world. I don't know, we'll see. But I gave Vampire Metropolis by Robin Brown 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read in May is Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. I have Keeping 13 here, so I already have the next book, so I am going to read the next book. And I have thoughts. This was the only pool that I did for my May TBR, and it was a random number generator. I think it was like 63. So this was the book that got pulled, which I was very excited about. And everybody was so excited for me to read it because this is so, like, people are feral over this series. So I was very excited. And I have thoughts. So the book is like a sports romance, and it's about Johnny and Shannon. And Shannon has like a very traumatic past, and she transfers to Chalmers College, like a high school, for a fresh start. Johnny is the like star rugby player, and he is like surpassed like his like high school team. He's like a professional. He's going to be professional fully. He's like on all these other trainings and stuff like that. Like he is on the road to be like a very successful professional rugby player. And that's his sole like focus, even though he's a very good student. And so they meet on the first day. They kind of have like a run-in, let's say, and he is like instantly like kind of captivated by her, kind of like beguiled with her right away. And he doesn't want to start a relationship with anybody because he is leaving, because he's going to go play professional rugby, and he thinks she's too young for him, and yada yada. She's a little bit enamored with him, but as a person, she doesn't like care about his like rugby status. And something that's surprising about this book was that they really don't share that much page time. They are very much separate through the vast majority of this book, which I was not expecting. And they're kind of like going through, like, you know, Shannon has a very traumatic home life. Johnny is playing with a hidden injury that is causing him a lot of pain, but he is like singularly focused on still competing and not slowing his career down. So they're dealing with all of those issues separately, while like kind of still developing feelings for each other when they kind of cross paths here and there. So the thing that kept me very much entertained and like engaged while they were separated was like the cast of characters. All their friends, who some of them get their own books, which I am like excited to read. Very, very good and like interesting and captivating characters. I really did enjoy like their whole friend group. So that does bode well for the rest of the series. Now I will say that the writing is very simplistic. It is not the best written book, just putting that out there. I will say, unfortunately, that Chloe Walsh really told and didn't show anything. Everything is front-loaded. The first two chapters, the first one's like Sharon, and I always call her Sharon. And she actually gets called Sharon in the book. Like, people forget her name. Sorry. Shannon's first chapter, and then Johnny's first chapter, she front-loads everything, tells you everything they've been through, everything. So from there on out, you know everything as the reader, and there's really no surprises. I would have liked it to be kind of revealed throughout the book, like certain revelations and stuff, and developed, like, but no, it's just like, and I funny because I talked about this in my vlog, and before I ever looked at anybody else's kind of a review or anything, and I'm not the only one that saw that this is like heavily tell no show. So just putting that out there, that is definitely, I would say, a con of this book. All that being said, I really grew to like Johnny as a character, and everyone's like, oh my God, like they're going to be so ripped up. It's going to be so sad. And besides Sharon's very traumatic, horrible storyline at her home life, take that aside, that is terrible. It wasn't really a sad book, in my opinion. I didn't think it was really that sad. It was way funnier than I expected. There were 3 scenes that I can think of, like with Brian and the cat, with Johnny and his mom in the kitchen, and then at the end, around a bed, where the scenes where I was cackling. It was so funny. So I did not expect it to be so funny in parts. Did it live up to the hype? I'm gonna be real, it did not, unfortunately. But I still very much enjoyed it, and I will be reading more of the series. So I gave Binding 13 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Wildlife by Victoria Woods. This is my second arc on my channel, which I was so thankful that Victoria Woods allowed me to be one of her arc readers. It was really exciting. So this book is a romance, and it's about Maris and Aleki. So Aleki has been, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I think he's like New Zealander. He was shipwrecked on an island at 10. His parents both passed away. So he's been living on this island for 30 some years or whatever, like 25 years or something, by himself and surviving. And Maris is a bat scientist, which was really interesting. And she's like taking a boat to like an island in Thailand, Fiji, I can't remember. And there's a storm, and she gets washed ashore, Aleki's island. So yeah, she's of course freaking out because she is shipwrecked, and there's this guy who's not talking. And so it's kind of like an enemies to lovers thing. And he just wants to be left alone. This is his home. This is his reality. Like, this is where he's comfortable, and he doesn't want like people coming to the island. But he can't necessarily just like turn her away. She has no way to survive. So they kind of like begrudgingly rely on each other to survive, and maybe some things develop. I would say I wish that Aleki had started speaking to Maris earlier in the book, because he does not speak to her in the beginning. And I really did like the way the initial ending was dealt with. counting the epilogue, I was like, this might not be like a long-term solution because, you know, the past is always going to come for you. Like, they're just not going to like be left alone forever. Like, there's choices are going to have to be made. And yeah, some difficult choices are going to have to be made. They have a little pet pig named like Puka, and he is a cute little character. He's like their little dog. And in the epilogue, there's like some like interesting developments with him. And I thought I really liked that. It was a nice little twist to the story. And one other thing that I liked about this book is that there was a map of the island in the front of the book, which you don't see much in romance. You see it like all the time in fantasy, but I enjoyed seeing a map of the island and seeing where everything was. And it really made the island more of a character. Yeah, I just really liked that little addition. The last thing I really liked was that Maris's love for conservation and bats and her, you know, scientific study was not just a plot device to get her to the island. Like, she truly means it and cares about it. And it doesn't just disappear when she gets to the island. So like that was like really important, that it wasn't just a plot device to get her there, to get her and Aleki in the same place. So I gave Wildlife by Victoria Woods 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read in May was The Great Big Beautiful Life, also known as The Great BBL, by Emily Henry. So this was an extremely buzzy book, and I was happy that I finally got to it. Okay, so I enjoyed it. Let's get to the synopsis first. So it's basically about two kind of dueling journalists, Hayden and Alice, who are both trying to vie for story rights, like biography or memoir rights for this kind of tabloid queen of the past who just kind of disappeared out of public life and now is interested in telling her life story possibly. So she kind of test drives both of them. So they're in this little competition to agree to let one of them write her book. So yeah, for a month, she's going to work with both of them, and then she's going to see who she wants to choose. And her and Hayden, yeah, like are kind of enemies, but they're also kind of in it together because they notice some weird things cropping up. So they kind of are a team at the same time sometimes. So yeah, they're trying to like look out for themselves, but also helping each other. We also get, in the month that they're working on the books, we get a lot of Margaret's story. I think her story went a little bit too far back in her family's history. I think like focusing more on her life would have been more interesting and we would have had more time for it. And obviously like Hayden and Alice like spent a lot of time together. So I don't know, maybe something can happen. But I will say for sure that Hayden is right. The corner booth is the best in any restaurant. Like the corner booth is the best. Like he's definitely right on that one. When you're reading the book, you'll know what I mean. So in the end, I gave this book 4 stars. Just 4 stars. Like it just made it to 4 stars. It was giving me Evelyn Hugo vibes, like the Margaret part of it with like the journalist and like looking back at her life and like telling her story. It gave me Evelyn Hugo vibes, but not as good. I think the twist in the end wasn't that impressive. I wasn't like totally shocked by it. The ending didn't land for me really, and the relationship between Hayden and Alice I think was pretty smooth sailing, so that didn't really intrigue me a lot. It's definitely not my favorite Emily Henry book that I've read. Like Funny Story is still like top god tier Emily Henry. Like that's my favorite of her books. So, but yeah, I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. This is a historical fiction with also like a mystery, and this is part of my first collab that I did it with Maya Papaya Reads. It won't be out yet, I don't think, when this video comes out. But yeah, so we exchanged 5-star reads and did a reading vlog when we read each other's 5-star reads. So once that is up, I will come back and link it above and below for you. So The Lost Apothecary is basically, it's dual timeline, it's there's 3 POVs, and basically back in the like 1700s, there was an apothecary that did like, you know, health things, like good things. And then when the daughter takes it over, she has like a traumatic event happen. And then she also will duel out poisons. So there's basically like two rules that she has. One is the poison must never be used to harm another woman. And number 2 is the names of the murderer and her victim must be recorded in the apothecary's register. So Nella is the like owner of the apothecary, and she helps women kill people, Usually they're like bad husbands or whatever, or brothers that are bad or whatever. So yeah, she helps them kill them, and then she like writes it all down in her register. So she's like recording these women's stories, like these women's stories that would be lost to time. Through this kind of work, she gets to know a young girl named Eliza who fills this emotional place in her that she really comes to care for her, and they kind of go on this adventure together. That's all I'm going to say. So that's like the past timeline. The current timeline is Caroline, who comes to London on her anniversary trip alone. So bad, obviously, like things are not smooth sailing there. And she finds this apothecary jar in the Thames, like when the tide is low. And it has like a little bear etched on it. And she's been very interested in history for a long time, and like the mysteries of history. So she goes on this whole journey to find out more about this, like where the apothecary was and what more about it. And she just wants to unravel this mystery about the apothecary bottle, or the jar. Yeah. And she's got her own like life stuff going on, and it ties into the lost apothecary. So yeah, I won't give any more away about that. But this book is beautifully written. It envelops you the way Sarah Penner writes. It is very beautifully written. It is so like almost like ethereal and like earthy, the way she writes, especially with like all the stuff she has to make in her apothecary, which is weird because she's like talking about murder and stuff. Like there's like infidelity and murder and all these things, but it's just such a comfy read for sure. I would say it's a kind of like a cozy mystery. I never thought I would like say that about a book I read because I'm not a fan of mystery, but it is kind of a cozy mystery. But I think the historical fiction part of it worked for me. Like there was a mystery, but it was wrapped up in a lot of other things I like. So I do feel like there wasn't really a big reveal at the end. Like there wasn't like a big mystery uncovered, really, kind of. It was like very soft. So there wasn't like a big like, which was fine, but I was kind of expecting that. And also, I kind of like the theme that runs through this book of that Nella like kind of had, helped kill people, but she had a code of her own that she felt justified her actions. But besides that, I did like the kind of the theme of women being seen and heard and remembered by other women in a time when they would just be basically erased from history. So I gave The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner 4 out of 5 stars. All right, so we have come to the end. This book was an Instagram ad that I was like, ooh, immediately got my attention. I had never really heard of it. Not super popular. It came out in 2018, I believe. All of the reviews on Goodreads seemed really good. So I just said, I'm just going to go ahead and buy this because it's already an anticipated 5 stars. I will stop bearing the lead. The book is On the Edge of Daylight by Giselle Beaumont. Okay, this book, guys. All right, where do I want to start? I have so much to say about it. Yeah, so it right up front, I will be very like upfront about this. This is a Titanic movie fan fiction, 100%. Do I care? No. Is it obvious when you're reading it? Yes. I was like, oh yeah, this is Titanic movie fan fiction. And when I got to like the point where I was like convinced it was, I looked it up and it's like, yeah, it started on fanfiction.net as a Titanic movie fan fiction. And yeah, I mean, that happens. And it got really popular and it took off from there. After 50 Shades of Grey, those were all fan fictions to begin with, and they got bigger. So while this is not nearly as popular as those, it kind of had the same origin story. Okay. And even though those ones, I don't know why I'm going into this, those ones kind of like went off into a completely unique world, this stayed in the fandom that it was originally written in. All right. So, okay. So yeah, there is like in the underlying, like very little B plot of like the Jack and Rose and Cal and all, they are all in this book, but renamed, and some people are like changed enough where it's not a blatant copy. But, you know, some of the dialogue is the same from the movie. So if that's really going to bother you, don't read this. But if you just don't care, you just want a good read, and it's well written. But I just felt like I should let you know that that is the case with this book. I'm going to put it down so I can put it on the screen for you. Yes, now about the book. That was kind of my disclaimer about it, even though who cares, but somebody might. All right, so I really love a book. I've discovered this about myself, that I really love a book when one of the romantic leads is a real historical figure. It was like a Ministry of Time I loved, and that was the case, and now On the Edge of Daylight. And so the original real historical figure is Officer Murdoch, who had like a very controversial portrayal in the Titanic movie. But regardless, he is the MMC in this book. And then we have a fictional FMC called Esther Bailey, who is the fictional first female officer on the White Star Line. So she's like an officer in training, and she is paired with Murdoch, who is the first officer, who basically has to train her, like kind of be her mentor or whatever. Like, so yeah, she's being trained during the maiden voyage of Titanic. And it's not taken well that she's a woman that's an officer. If you cannot handle or prefer not to read about like heavy misogyny, this is not the book for you. It is almost on every page for at least half the book, because she is the first female officer ever to like serve on White Star Line, and like that's from the passengers, that's from the crew, like that's from the captain, like Captain Smith. Everybody at the beginning has a problem with this. So yeah, so just keep that in mind, that there is heavy misogyny throughout the book. Some of the tropes you can expect in this book are doomed romance, forbidden romance, and enemies to lovers. This is like heavy enemies to lover, especially enemies to lovers, especially on his side. I would say that if you like, I know enemies to lovers is extremely popular. This one has been a little bit different than the other enemies to lovers that I've read, because usually I feel like when I read enemies to lovers, there's always like a very clear turning point for the two characters. There was a misunderstanding, or they find out they have this very traumatic or important thing to them in common, and it sets them off on the right foot after being enemies. Or they have this like very much common goal that means a lot to them. And it wasn't as clear cut in this book. I feel like they would take 2 steps forward and 3 steps back from like on the over and behind the enemies to lovers line. Okay. And it kept, even when I was like, okay, they have to be past this enemies line, no, they would like go back again. So it was different in that way. I did like think that was, it kept surprising me that it didn't have a clear line that they crossed from going from enemies to lovers. All right. Anyway, so back to the plot. He has like very little respect for her. There is kind of like a misunderstanding in the beginning where he resents her even though something isn't her fault. It's a very uphill battle of them working together. But eventually she kind of wins over some of the other officers, and they come to respect her, and they, like again, it goes back and forth, but eventually they start having feelings for each other, which they very much struggle against. And when that is kind of fully developed, there's the whole fraternization issue. They are both officers in the White Star Line, and they cannot have a relationship because they would both lose everything they've worked for. They would lose their positions. They would never like be hired again. They would both be fired. And Murdoch has been like a sailor for like 20 years. It's his family's tradition to become captain, and so he is like 2 positions away from captain. So, and Esther, she has fought tooth and nail. She's went to school. She's done like other ships, like not as an officer, but she's really like clawed her way up the ladder against all odds because she is a female, and has now like gotten this chance. So they are risking a lot if they give in to feelings for each other. So that's like another problem. And then there was a third one, but I can't remember what it is. No, so they end up, the Titanic sails into New York and everybody's happy. No. Yeah, spoiler alert, it's the Titanic. So you have that happening as well. Oh, I have never really annotated books, but this will be the first book I'm going to annotate. I like immediately after finishing it ordered like annotating stuff. And I'm going to annotate this book because I want to be able to like reference back to like my favorite parts over and over and over. Yes. And yeah, I won't spoil a lot of it, but it is incredibly sad, obviously. You're not going to read a book about the Titanic thinking it's going to be happy. So there's your warning right there. I will say that I really enjoyed as well some of the like additional things in the back of the book. There is a map of the officers' quarters, which I found really helpful, which I didn't know it was in the book until I was, you know, more than halfway through because I didn't like go to the end, but that was really helpful. And she did the author did all her own original art. So there is like some really nice original art in the back. There's more, but it's like technically spoilerish. So I won't show you all of it, but there's some of the other officers on the Titanic. It has a glossary for like, you know, all the language that you may not be familiar with. Aft, midship, astern, yada, yada, yada. It has there all the different, where is it? It has a section in the afterword. It tells you like what happened to every character, whether they were real or fictional. So be careful with that one because you don't want to glance too long at that if you're just looking at the back. They have also the officer watches and a timeline. So you know whose watch is when and who they're like, you know, with, which is was cool because I didn't know how that worked on a ship. Yeah. So it comes with a lot of little fun extras. Literally, I will post a picture here of me finishing it, bloodshot eyes, upset. And this was like less than 24 hours ago. So I am still very much hurting. I am dead. I am deceased. And I am ruined. That's what this book did to me. So read with caution. Yeah, so I've given you all like actually there are like, I love when authors do this. I mean, could be considered a spoiler, I guess. But there is like a little, in her preface, she does talk about some trigger warnings. So I'll just read those out to you. It's open door, which I appreciated. Profanity, sexual assault, alcohol abuse, mention of past domestic abuse, mention of suicide, mention of ableist slur, mention of racial slur, reflective of the time period, death, child death, drowning, grief, loss, violence, blood, PTSD, classism, sexism, and misogyny. So, you know, there is a lot here. So all that being said, I adored this, and I'm still very much hurting. 5 stars if you did not catch on. Okay, that's all I read in May. It was a great month, ended on an absolute banger. And I'm like, okay, I have to like start another book now and move on. But you know what they say? The best way to get over a book is to get in between the sheets with another one. All right, that's all from me today. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And please stop in one of our reading and productivity sprints that we have about twice a week. We have a great group in there and a Discord. So you can join us and chat in between over there. All right, I'll see you next time. Bye.